can indeed, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great news.
Excellent stuff. Well, are you happy to have a chat about all things Skillet and the brand new album?
You know that I am.
Excellent stuff. Right. Okay. We've now got John on the line talking about the brand new Skillet album that's Dominion. That it's out now. It's the 11th studio album from the band. So really, I've been a big fan of Skillet, I think, since Rise, and I think we have chatted a few times. I think I bumped into you at Download, I think. Don't ask me how many years ago that was, and I know we've talked a couple of times since then. My daughter's also a very big fan of the band. I've been sent the album. I'm listening to the album, and I get sent, as you appreciate, an awful lot of albums, and I listen to a lot of albums, and I tend to think, oh well, yeah, second or third time songs will start growing me. I listened to the album first time, and it wasn't so much that I wanted to listen to it again. I needed to listen to it again. It was on first listen. It's a cracking album, and I was very impressed with it. So can you tell us a bit about the brand new album?
Wow, that's so exciting. What an incredible introduction. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, it's great to chat with you. And man, do I hope to be back at Download again and get to say hello to you again. That's what we can all cross our fingers and hope for the best. It is our 11th record, which I can't believe that I'm old enough to have been doing this for 25 years, because I feel like I'm in my maybe my 30s, maybe not my 20s, but I feel like I'm in my 30s and still really enjoying music. And I think that people will be able to tell when they hear the new record, Dominion. You can tell we had a good time. This record rocks. It's uber positive. Every interview and review I've seen says this is a really positive record. And that was intentional because, you know, I wanted to write a record that people could put on. And I don't want to say they have to forget the last couple of years, because everybody knows it's been difficult. There's no way we can forget it. But I don't want to focus on it. I want to focus on the future. What do we do tomorrow? What do we do to kind of get back my life and not give in to these forces of just negativity and pessimism, maybe depression. A lot of people out there that I know struggling hard with depression. I know people that have fallen back into addictions that they had been, you know, clean and sober for 5, 7, 8, 10 years. And a year into the pandemic, they just couldn't take it anymore. And they fell back into something because they had absolutely no hope for the future. And I got to be honest, that affected me because I love them and it made me sad for them. And so I wanted to write a record for those people in my life saying, no, do not give up. Don't stop fighting. There's a future and you belong in it. And I hope that this record really honestly just pumps people up enough to not give up.
And I think when I first spoke to you on the back of Rise, which I can't believe is nearly 10 years old now, I think
oh my gosh,
you'd had to, or you'd been made by the record label to write an inordinate amount of tracks on Rise, much to your own consternation, I think at the time, you know, for them to pick the 11 or 12 they wanted. Was this the case with Dominion? Did you write a lot of tracks that haven't made it to the album?
Well, I'm so glad. I can't believe that you remember that, but I'm so glad that you said it because because I've told several people on interviews, they said, how is this record different? And I have to go through the entire story. And I'm so glad you remembered that we wrote over 70 songs for Rise. Yeah. Every time we make a record, we're writing and writing and writing. This one was different. You know, we wrote only 17 songs for this record, and we wrote and recorded the entire record in 5 months. I mean, from song number 1 all the way to the end, mixed, mastered, ready to be released. 5 months. We started writing the record less than 1 year ago. So that kind of shows you the, what do you want to call it? How it was propelled. I mean, these songs just, I felt like they just came out of me. And I was a little surprised because truthfully, I wasn't planning on recording a record. I kind of thought, maybe let's wait a little longer till the pandemic is really coming to an end, because you don't want to release a record in the middle of a pandemic because, you want to do it on the backside. But I just was like, you know what? Sometimes you just got to go with it. And if the songs are coming out, then I think it's meant to be. And so we just went for it. The label liked it. I couldn't believe everybody was like, we love this. Let's release it. And I was thrilled.
And were there additional problems in trying to write and record in the midst of pandemic? Were you able to get into one studio and do it all in one place, or have you had to sort of find alternative ways of doing things?
Well, that was the tricky part, but luckily it all worked out really well because we have our own studio, and so just looking at the way things worked out, it was really quite beautiful. But it did throw a little wrench in the system because me and Corey, who's my wife and guitar player, we were gonna be flying out to go write with the producer and try writing our first song and see how it went. And because of COVID, something had come up, and I think that some of the travel restrictions kind of got placed in again, and we couldn't do it. And I said, man, a lot of people are writing on Zoom. I really don't want to do that. It's like, I can't think of anything that I would hate more than that. It's just so sterile, and it felt inauthentic. But I said, man, but I really want to work on this song. Can we give it a try? So we decided to try it, and it just shockingly went really well. And so we were able to record in our studio, and we would send files to the producer, and then he would Kevin and his son Kane Churko, they would re-record files or add to files or do whatever they do, send it back. So we ended up working in 2 different studios.
Right. And
somehow I think that might be why it happened so fast. We were all kind of like working full time, just making these songs. And I got to say, I'm surprised it worked so well, but I think it had some benefits.
Yeah. And listening to the album, there are tracks on there like Valley of Death and Refuge that I do like, a nice big power ballad, and it reminds me of almost going back to something like Lucy or something like that. What are the stories behind some of those? I mean, Valley of Death sounds very ominous. Now, I very much need to play this album to my daughter, who will explain to me what the lyrics mean in most songs. I'm very much a listen to a tune, enjoy a good tune, stamp my foot to it, and then go back and have realize what the story is about. But perhaps you could tell us, yeah, which unfortunately means that a lot of the depth on a lot of the songs is lost on me until about the 3rd or 4th listen. Then I'm going, oh yeah. So tell us me about.
I will say,
go on. Sorry.
Oh, sure. No, I will say that puts you in the majority, of people. Most of it. I mean, look, when I turn on the radio, I'm not wondering whatever, Korn is singing about. I don't really care what they're singing about. I just like the way it sounds, and later on you get it. So I think most people hear the tune first, and then they go back and dig in. And Valley of Death, it is a dark song. It's a very honest song, and of course it does have this ray of hope at the end. But I wanted to write something that was very real. And the funny thing is, Valley of Death is the only song on the record that I wrote on my own. And not only did I write on my own, I wrote it really fast. It just kind of, I think I wrote it in 2 hours. And I was like, told my wife, I said, I wrote this song. I think it might be really good. And I played it for her, and she was like, I love this. And the producer loved it. And I was kind of surprised once again. But Valley of Death is basically this. It obviously comes from a Bible passage that, a lot of people learn when they're kids or even in Catholic school or whatever. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And I think that most people in the world, all over the world, feel in one way or another that they have been walking through the valley of death over the last couple of years. And part of walking through the valley means that you can't see what's beyond the mountains. You can't see where you're headed when and you don't know what the future holds. And you begin to take account of your life. You begin to say, all right, is this the life that I want to live? Have I been the person I want to be? What are people going to remember about me when I am gone? And at nighttime in the valley, you can't see anything and you feel absolutely alone. And that's the question of the song. Am I alone going through this really painful, difficult time? And of course there's a resolution, and the end of the song ends with, I know that I'm not alone. I'm not alone in the valley of death. And that is this message of hope, because I mean, on lots of levels, and like I say, I can't think of anything else in my lifetime that the entire world has all gone through at the same moment. I mean, maybe the last time that happened would be like World War II, perhaps, but the entire world is all experiencing this same emotion. And that's why I felt that it was powerful when I was singing it, thinking every human being on the planet will be able to relate to this feeling. And if we're all feeling it, then guess what? We are not alone in that feeling. And I think that's kind of encouraging.
And again, the album has a whole sort of mixture of, like, say Refuge is another one of those sort of big power ballads on there, but it's got a whole, the album does remind me a little bit of going back to Rise in the mix of it. You know, you've got some very in your face upbeat rocky songs, but you've also got some very big power ballads on it there. Were you sort of conscious of when writing the album of putting that mix of contrasting songs on, or did it just evolve naturally?
I think I would say it just happened. I mean, we always have ups and downs in our records, so I kind of assumed it would, but the truth is we wrote it so fast that I didn't even really have time to think about it. It was just kind of happening. And like I said, when I wrote Valley of Death, I played it for my wife and she loved it. And I was like, okay, I'll send it to our producer. I wasn't sure if our producer was going to like it or not. And then he's like, dude, I love this song. And I was like, huh, well, that's really interesting. So the truth is that, no, I really didn't plan for that. This record really just kind of surprised all of us. And I don't know if that necessarily means it's our best record or not. It just means that's the way this one went. I personally think it's one of our best records we've ever made. But you know, time will tell. But either way, I think that it's a record for now. And frankly, I felt that way about Rise as well. You know, I look back at our album Rise. I always felt like that record was a record like for the moment. And I think this one is a little similar like that.
Well, I must admit, I've literally listened to it twice now, I think. But you know, and I think the mark of a good album is that if you listen to it the first time and you go, actually, I do definitely need, you know, it's one of these, I think, you know, the moment it gets to track 12, I'm going to go back and listen to track 1, and that doesn't always happen with a lot of stuff. So I'm on first impressions, I'm very impressed, sir.
Yeah, that's such great news. Thank you so much.
So are we going to get a chance to see you guys over here performing it? Now, I know that's a sort of $1 million question, and I've done a lot of interviews where bands are coming over in January and February, and then it gets cancelled and it gets cancelled. I mean, how do you book a tour now with any degree of confidence that you will actually be able to get over here?
I'll tell you what, that's really frustrating, isn't it? We are planning on coming to UK this summer.
Brilliant.
And, you know, knock on wood. I mean, it has been kind of an annoying time to book shows because you just don't know what's going to happen. But, you know, a lot of people that I know in the industry feel, you know, they're feeling good about the chances. You know, it seems like, it's almost like you don't want to speak too soon, but it does seem like that we are turning a corner in the pandemic, in the way that people handle the pandemic, possibly in therapeutics, meaning drugs, you know, to help with the virus and this, that, and the other. It feels like that we might be turning a corner. And I'll tell you, I really miss coming to overseas, Europe, UK, Russia. And I'm getting so many messages when this record released, like, oh my gosh, you have to come back to London. You know, and London was our last show that we played overseas before lockdown. So it was like we really ended on a bang because we had to play a sellout show in London. People were saying, man, the next time you come, we're going to have to move up venues. I really could not believe the amount of hardcore fans we had in the UK. And then next thing you know, this this pandemic hits and lockdown hits. And so, man, we're all really hoping the summer happens.
Because I don't think I'd fully appreciate it till I spoke to some bands, is that, you know, you tend to think, oh, well, you know, people be able to turn up, you know, if they get hit by COVID. But then I think I spoke to one band, said, well, you know, I hope to catch up and see you in person at a show. And then, you know, they're not doing meet and greets, they're not doing face-to-face interviews, because you suddenly realize that if just one of you goes down with COVID on the tour bus, then that potentially is the end of your tour. And if that's at the beginning, and I guess it put it into perspective how fragile you as a band are. You know, in order to make that 10-date tour work, you know, you have to almost sort of isolate yourself, because you want to get out there and play, the fans want to get out there and see you, but it only takes this awful thing to hit you, and that could put you out of circulation. I mean, it must be very difficult to try and plan anything on the back of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think also what's frustrating is that lots of people are going to have different opinions on how to handle those things. And one of the naive things about me was I never realized the, vitriol is probably the best word for it. I never realized the vitriol that would happen when I shared my opinion of those. Because I remember when in 2020, it was March 2020, and all of a sudden the pandemic had hit America and this, that, and the other. And I had a call from, you know, like Billboard, I think it was, wanting to just ask me my opinion of doing shows. And because I was still on tour, and I was like, no, we're not canceling a tour for this. You know, it never crossed my mind to cancel the tour. And so anyway, when the article came out, the whole article was full of bands. I mean, all the big bands, much bigger than me, saying, we're canceling the tour because we can't chance this and it's not the right thing to do. And at the end they say, but there's another singer that feels differently. I didn't even know that I was getting in the mix of anything. I was just like, no, I'm not afraid of this. I shake hands. If somebody wants to give me a hug, I get a hug. I'm just not really afraid of this. And man, did people get mad. And I wasn't trying to say anything. That's not political at all to me. So I guess what I'm saying is yeah, people are going to handle this in different ways in terms of meet and greets, interviews. You know, I don't want to make anybody mad about my personal opinion, but I'm happy to do face-to-face interviews. I mean, I don't want anybody to kiss me. You know, we can do it from a distance and this and the other. I want to be smart about it. But I also want to connect with people. I find it really difficult not connecting with people one-on-one, like this living life, this relationship thing, having relationships only over Zoom. I find that a really bleak existence, and I don't think it's good for the psychology of human beings. So I think we're kind of weighing all these things, but I'm in no way trying to say what someone else should do. I have not said what anybody else should do. I just shared my own opinions. And I think we're all trying to weigh all of that. I don't know what the answer is, because you're right. One person gets it, they're down, isolate them for however many days it is, you know, I don't know, 10 days, or some are saying 5 days now. I don't even know what the newest rules are, but yeah, now you miss shows. Now you might get somehow, now everybody needs to test. It's just such a hassle, but you know what? I'm not going to focus on the dark side. I'm going to be optimistic about it. And I just think it's going to be a great year. And I feel quite optimistic that I will be seeing you this summer.
Excellent. Well, I can give you my assurance that I will not kiss you when I see you, if that helps.
And now we can meet face to face. Otherwise, I was going to put you on the no list, but we're good now.
Now, one of the questions my daughter wanted me to ask you was the Skillet graphic novel. Now, I think we talked about that possibly the last time we chatted, and that probably was on the back of the first one coming out. Now, I think, was it last year, the year before, you released Eden 2, The Aftermath, which is the second graphic novel. How did you get into the what got you into doing the waking up one morning and going, I want to do a Skillet comic?
Right. Truthfully, that happened a long time ago because I love comic books. I grew up loving comics, and when I was a kid, my introduction to the band Kiss was from a comic book at one of my friend's house. My friend had a Kiss comic, and he had a Kiss doll. You remember, like they're like a foot tall. These big dolls. They were awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What is this?" I mean, yeah, they weren't really even a rock band to me. They were characters or something. And so I kind of always thought that'd be really cool to do that one day. And I finally had the opportunity when a company called me. I think they had called me because I had posted on my social media page some of my I collect comic book figurines and toys and a movie paraphernalia from sci-fi films and things like that. And I think they had seen how much I love comics. They said, "Have you thought about doing a graphic novel?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to try to write something." So I wrote a storyline, and then they hired a writer, which I never could have made the book without the writer because my idea was good, but the writing was terrible because I'm not a writer. And so it just began a great partnership. We made a great book called Eden. I personally loved it. The artwork was really cool, really science fiction, supernatural, just like you feel good when you're done reading it, but had a lot of action in it and stuff. It was cool. And I tell people it's sort of like Walking Dead meets Stranger Things or something like that. That was kind of cool. And then we did a second book, and the second one came out like literally in the middle of the pandemic. And I think that's what was difficult was we were releasing extra songs from the record. And frankly, we were doing it because people were sitting at home in lockdown and they were depressed and people needed something to do. And I said, you know what, let's release some extra songs and we'll release a book at the same time, give people something to do. But I do think that even though people liked it, it sort of got lost in the mix because it's almost like people wanted something to do, but they didn't. Nobody wants to be reminded of that time. Does that make sense? It's almost like, oh yeah, that's the book that I got in the middle of lockdown when I was depressed and hadn't seen any friends for 3 months. It's almost like people don't want to remember that. So it kind of just got hidden into this abyss, which was a bummer because Eden 2 is a really good book.
Well, I think my daughter's got the first one, and now on the back of saying I was interviewing you today, apparently I've got to go and buy the second one for her now. So,
oh, that's awesome! I hope she loves it.
Yeah, well, she loved the first one. I mean, so presumably, does that not lend itself to the 12th studio album with the comic book crossover, so that you bring out the two together and you have the songs that go with the comic book? Has that thought occurred to you?
I mean, that would be amazing. That's definitely what Alice Cooper would do. That's for sure. And I don't know if we have the right audience for that, but I would love it if we could release a third book. And I'm sure that we could do music like that. I mean, the Who would do that. So yeah.
Well, I suppose the Last Temptation, that now I think about it, was that album from Alice Cooper had the comic book that went with it. And again, I think you've got to look for the comic book. And
that's right.
Yeah. So well, there we go. Well, if the next album is one, I'd like to claim some credit for instilling that idea.
Yes, that's good. You got it. You and your daughter, because she can explain it to you. She can explain what the book means.
Excellent, I will do. Well, thank you ever so much for chatting to us about the brand new album, and I really hope that we get to see anybody come over here this summer, but specifically you guys, because I'm thoroughly enjoying what little I've heard of the album, and I shall be playing it a lot. So thank you ever so much for that.
Well, thank you. I sure look forward to seeing you too. Thanks for a great interview. I appreciate the support.
Okay, no, brilliant stuff. Okay, hope to catch you soon, sir.
You got it. Talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Later.